Building a time wealth business is not about getting rich. It's about creating a balance of time and money so you can get back to doing the things you love most, whether it be spending more time with your family, traveling, learning new skills, or whatever you want. So the real question is, how exactly do you go about creating a time wealth business? Well, that's what this channel is all about, and each episode will give you another piece of the puzzle. And as a thank you for tuning in, I've put together a special presentation entitled The 8 Steps to Build Your Time Wealth Business. You can get it for free at www.timewellthsecrets.com/8-steps-free. See you in there. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Time Wealth Secrets. It's a little bit chilly today and a little bit windy, so sorry about that if that's messing up the audio, the wind. What can you do? Nature. A little bit of a different episode today. This was something I was just thinking about as I was this morning, like at the end of my exercise routine. At the end of my exercise routine, I usually always, I'll stretch and then I'll meditate for a little bit, and a lot of thoughts come into my mind. It's good to clear the mind that way. And one of these things that came into my mind was how not to worry about stuff. This is something that, obviously I didn't come up with it, but I've kind of managed to internalize it to a certain extent over the years. I think I stumbled across this like 10, maybe even 20 years ago, and I just never voiced it to anyone. How not to worry. So let's just go over it. I guess this really in reality applies to everything that you do in life, but because everyone has worries about everything, like family, and some people worry about things more than others, right? Like there's people that are just stresses, and then people that just naturally aren't. They're just more relaxed. But I think everyone kind of has worries, even if they're just little temporary worries. It could be like family, money, worries in your business. Like that's how it would relate to time wealth business, I guess. You might have a worry about starting your time wealth business because it's it can be a little bit risky in the minds of some people. Yeah, I mean, relationships, like there's you can literally worry about everything. Like people worry in the supermarket about which pasta they're going to buy and stuff like that, right? So here's my tips for how to overcome worry. So the big picture thing is, when you think about it, all you really need to keep you and your loved ones alive is food, water, and shelter. Now everyone's probably been without food, or like why you be thirsty or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I mean like you don't know where you're going to get your next, or you literally don't have a home, right? And even homeless people, like you'll find that a lot of them are like really relaxed because they know that they can survive even without shelter, right? Or they can, even if you don't actually have a home, they have a shelter somewhere to lay their head at night. Like they have a little, I don't know, a little spot under the bridge or whatever they do. I've never been homeless, but I have like during my travels, there's been like more than once, like a couple of times I've like literally had nowhere to sleep and just like slept on the street and stuff like that. So even like you can even go with that thing, and I've been hungry and without shelter, and you know what I mean. But I think in my mind, because I know it's not permanent, so you don't really need to stress about it. But I think for most people, as long as you have food, water, and shelter, then you don't really have to worry. Like nothing else really matters. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right? So if you can just get that into your mind, so as long as you've got food, water, and shelter, you're doing pretty good. There's a lot of people out there that don't have those things, right? And having that thought kind of allows you to take more risks if you're willing to risk. So a lot of people don't take risks. They don't move forward because they're worried about losing what they have. But when you boil it down to it, so if you think, even if I lost everything, as long as I still have food, water, and shelter, I can rebuild everything else, right? You can always rebuild stuff, like. And then usually the second time you might think, it's taken me 10 years to get to where I am now. But if you lost it all, you'd probably be able to, because you know the path, because you've done it, you can shortcut all the mistakes. You can get back to where you are in much less time. right? Yeah, and so that's the first thing. That's big picture, and then little picture. When you like, when there's actually things that pop up, it's like, oh, and you're worried about it, like, oh, this happened or whatever. I don't know. There's a million examples, but for some reason, I just can't come up with one now. Like maybe something happened in business, or like, oh, let's say, all right, here's one that's like really worth worrying about for most people. Let's say you get cancer, right? Probably one of the on the worst side of things. Definitely more serious than most people's worries. That you get cancer, it's like super serious, right? But what can you do? So if you can do something about it, or if you're willing to do something about it, then do it, right? And that can be applied to anything. So whether it be you're getting cancer, or whether it be you're I don't know, I can't think of another, but even like just an example that's not so serious, right? If you can do something about it, whatever it is, do it, and do it to the best. Like, right, there's like, so let's say you get cancer, there's a lot of things you can do to try to beat the cancer. You go to the doctor, take their advice, you might try natural methods, you might have a drastic change in lifestyle to try to reverse it, or whatever. Like you would go and you would research the hell out of it to try to figure out how to beat it, right? All right. But if you can't do anything about it, or you've decided you don't want to take those routes, whatever those routes, maybe you don't want to do chemo, right? I think if I got cancer, I probably wouldn't want to do chemo, because sure, it might prolong your life, but I might try it once or twice, but then the quality of life is just bad, right? So let's say that's a personal decision. Obviously, you don't, whatever. All right. So, and there might be a point where it's like, right, I don't want to do anymore. I just want to pass on now. So when you get to that point, if you can do something about it, do it. If not, there's no point worrying about it, because you can't do anything about it anyway. And I think that second thing is a thing that a lot of people, probably it's harder to wrap your head around. Like, all right, you've tried all the stuff you can do, or you've done the research of whatever the problem is, and you can't fix it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's out of your hands. So just leave it. And then because you can't do anything about it, why worry about it anyway? Because you can't. Like, worrying will not fix it. In fact, worrying will probably just make it worse. At the very least, it's going to make you feel bad, and then you're not going to be productive in other things. Like, instead of worrying, use that energy to do other things that are more productive, right? In Colombia, there's a word. I just learned this recently, so I'm not really sure if it's if this is the right use of it, but it's this word, and it's called paila, right? It's like, well, you can't do anything about it anyway. Baila, right? Ah, a bird just shat on my shoulder. Baila. What are you gonna do, right? There's nothing you can, like, I can clean it off, right? But I can't. I'm not going to go out and try to kill the bird. Right? There's nothing to say. No point worrying about it. So what do? I clean it off, and there's a stain there. All right. There's nothing I can do about it until I get home. So why worry about it, right? And then when I get home, I'll just wash it off. Even if I'm like, oh, let's say I'm dressed in my fancy suit and a bird shits on it, and then like I got to go to the wedding or whatever, and I can't get it off. Like, there's nothing I can do. Right, I've tried to put water on it or whatever, I've tried to clean it, and there's a little smudge there. Some people might stress out about that. Not me. I wouldn't care about that. But like, I can imagine a lot of people would. Maybe if it was my wedding, right, I'd be like, oh, damn. But if there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it. So don't worry about it, right? You just be like, whatever. I got bird shit on my suit, whatever, right? So there's an example that's not nowhere near as serious as getting cancer, but just so you can see how it can adapt to pretty much anything in life. All right. So the last step, the last thing. So there's the two things, right? As long as you got food, water, and shelter, overall in a big structure, you're good. And when little things happen, you either fix it, or if you can't or don't want to, then don't worry about it. Whatever. I think that second one last point, is that second one applies a lot to when it's depending on another person. So when it depends on other people to do it, like, don't stress about other people's stuff. Don't worry about other people's stuff, because that's them, right? If they don't want to do something about it, if they don't want your help or whatever, don't worry about it. I know this is kind of easy for me to do, like to disassociate. I know it's hard for a lot of people, especially like I see, for example, mothers and their children, right? They worry a lot, but so you can guide your children or whatever, but in the end, people are people, and they get to a stage where they're free thinking and they're just going to do what they think, and you can give them advice or whatever, but they're going to do it anyway. And I understand that you're going to worry about people that you love. That's just the way it is. So it's not entirely flawless, this, what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, you can always just keep that in the back of your mind. All right, so the last thing is you got to try to internalize this. So this stuff is really easy to say, but I can, yes, for a lot of people, this is going to be really, really hard to actually put into action. I think naturally I've never really been much of a worrier, even as a child, maybe. I don't know, I can't remember that far back. I'm not that old. I can't remember when I was like 5. But I remember learning, like, coming across these ideas when I was pretty young. Like, I don't know if I was a teenager. I think I was probably pre-teens. I don't remember being very worrisome when I was a teenager. And I think the key to internalize it, if it's not already in your system, is to just, one of the easiest ways you can do it is just to write it down somewhere and then just read it to yourself over and over and over again. Like every morning, read the things, and every night read them. And that may seem arbitrary or kind of silly, but it's like the step to internalize anything. You want to internalize anything, just like the very first step you can do is just, and the easiest thing you can do to get you going is just to write it down, and then every morning read it, and every night read it, and then try to imagine it, try to feel the feeling you get when that would be true, whatever that is. And that's like not just for this, it's like when you're goal setting or whatever. Let's say you want a new car, so you get a picture of the car and you look at it in the morning, and then just feel what it's like to own that car, right? And then your mind will automatically start dreaming up ways, like doing the subconscious thing of like attracting that to you, right? It's kind of like the law of attraction. That's pretty much what's happening here, the law of attraction. And it's not like, you know, that book, The Secret, and they think, oh, it's just like a magic thing. Well, it's not, but it is, you know, in a kind of way. It's like, because when you start doing things like that, you automatically find ways. Like, it's just, you feel bad if you don't find ways to do it, right? So then you start thinking about it. It's just, there's this thing where it's like, whatever you look at automatically grows, sort of thing. So it's like, let's say I'm taking the KPIs of how many subscribers are on my list or whatever, just for example, or what's the profit loss ratio. Let's take that, because everyone understands profit loss, especially if you're listening to this. So you look at your profit loss and you look at it every day, and when you start looking at it and you think, hang on, why isn't it growing? What's going on here? Automatically in your head, right, your brain will be like, how can I make it grow more? Like, and if you don't do something about it, after a while, you're going to keep looking at it, and then after maybe, it could take ages, right? It could take months, but then all of a sudden you're going to be like, listen, I've been staring at this thing. It hasn't been moving for months. I've been making the same amount of money for months. Like, nothing's changing. How do I make it better? Like, and then you will start to do things just to make yourself feel better, so you can see the number grow, right? And it's not really even about how much money you earn. It's just because you want to make things better. Yeah, and that is pretty much it. All right, guys, that was a bit of a long one today. I think the last thing is there's always going to be temporary stresses. So, but you just keep that in mind. It's like, so when you do find yourself stressing out about something or worrying about something, you just say to yourself, listen, there's nothing I can do about it anyway, or here's what I'm going to do to fix it, or there's nothing I can do about it anyway, so just whatever. Alright, that's it for today, guys. It was a bit of a long one, but I hope you found value in it, and I'll see you again next time. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Time Wealth Secrets. I hope you found some value in this episode. If you did, please like and share it so more people can discover it and learn how to build their own time wealth business. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can be notified as soon as the latest episodes are released. Finally, remember to claim your free presentation entitled The 8 Steps to Build Your Time Wealth Business. You can get it for free at www.timewealthsecrets.com/8-steps